Hi, this is Ben Schwell, and today I'm talking about plurals. Because once you have a plural form down in a language, you can look at a page and assess, well, I know what all those mean. And when people are speaking, you'll be able to get the gist of a conversation a lot quicker because you'll know exactly where the nouns or things are in a sentence and be able to figure out the rest of a language much faster. It's a good way to begin in a structured way like this to get down when people are talking about singular and plural things. So on this channel I've focused a lot mainly on Cymraeg, Welsh. But if you've seen this channel before or not, I have stated that I'm going into Français, Netherlands, Deutsch, Magyar now, Ukrainian, and Ifrit, Hebrew. And so I'm going to take you through those languages today and show you how the plurals work in each one. Plurals are quite simple to learn in most languages. Welsh, plurals are quite different, and in fact Welsh has a deeper nuance for plurals and layers of meaning in plurals than any language that I have ever come across. And so I will make an entire video just for plurals in Welsh for you next time, which I will put here. Let's get into the content. Magyar nyelv, or the Hungarian language, is famous for its case systems. And basically, the way they form cases is attaching things at the end of words, suffixes, sometimes prefixes at the beginning. And so it makes it difficult to determine what a case is, and there's anywhere between 18 and something like 21 cases or something like that in Hungarian, depending on how you determine what a case is. Hungarian is immensely complex. Thankfully, its plurals are very simple. In fact, Hungarian plurals are probably the most simple in any language that I've come across, and that's why I'm giving them to you first. Let me introduce the letter K. And that's most of what you need to know. Not all though. Any word ending in a K, pretty much, that's quite easy. There's three main ways. The first one, it adds it directly to the end of a word that ends in a vowel, like this. Felhők, clouds. And the K just adds to that vowel that's already having an umlaut on it. And sometimes you do get words that end in K, ablak, window. And you add a vowel and then a K, ablakok. Autók, cars. The second way that Hungarian shows plurals with this letter K, there are words that do not end in vowels. They have to attach a vowel to it and then the K. Hungarian works with something called vowel harmony, which is quite beautiful and melodious. Mountain, heg, and then it becomes Hegyek. Don't quote my pronunciation on that, but the two vowels, they match because that's an EK at the ending, not like the other ones I showed you. And you have something really beautiful in Hungarian happen, and that vowels will match through lots of long words. And it's how the language creates a very melodious sound in some ways. I like Hungarian for it. Words ending in consonants that add the vowel and then K, like harang becomes harangok, bells. Ing becomes ingek, shirts. So this is quite simple. Another vowel harmony, has, the word for house, becomes Házak, houses. Thirdly, sometimes the plural becomes the central bit or the middle bit of a longer word because of all these gluing suffixes that get added on. So the K, or the plural ending, becomes attached onto the main root of the word, and then things are added on after that. A fuck on van. She is in the trees, or he is in the trees. There's no distinction between he and she in many cases in Hungarian, but you see the K is in the middle of that short sentence, and that's because there's a K system that attaches onto the plural noun there. And that's a simple instance. I don't want to go too far into Hungarian grammar, but you can see how the plural can come in the middle of the word though. Deutsch, the German language. This is infamous for being a bit complex. Plurals aren't that complex, though, because of the article. I'll just put the table here. There's different ways to convey the plural, but let's focus first, before going into the article, on the actual endings that you get which are plural. There are not that many, so you can identify them in German that's written down or spoken quite easily. First, words ending in various forms with N in them. This is really common, especially among feminine nouns. We're talking like, I think over 90% of feminine nouns in German have this ending. So for example, die Klinge, the blade, becomes die Klingen, the blades. And that's all you need to know for that. So we'll move on to the next one. The second you get endings with Rênlein, RLN, have no change in the plural form. They just change the article at the front. So for example, der Schauspieler, the actor, becomes die Schauspieler, the actors. The Löffel, the spoon, die Löffel. No real difference there. And then you get the S ending, which is common pretty much across most of Western Europe by this point. It's kind of spread out. Nouns ending in A, E with an accent, I-O-U-Y, and many English loanwords end in S. So for example, die Opas, the grandfathers, the grandpas, die Autos, the cars, die Kameras. So this is a common ending in German. One that's probably quite important is lads. Der Junge becomes die Jungs. The lads are the boys. And words ending in these add the E ending. Almost all, or the vast majority of masculine nouns simply add E. Der Hund, die Hunde. Der Tisch, the table, die Tische. So that's a good one to know. There is an E ending for the plural that changes the middle of the word slightly. It adds an umlaut to the word, like Fuß for foot becomes die Füße, the feet. Swan and swans, Schwan, Schwäne. See kind of an inflection in the middle of the word, which happens in Welsh, by the way, which I find interesting. That's just very, very, very basic for the plurals in German. They are complex, which makes German a very beautiful language, I think. And maybe we can explore that more. If you would like in another video, let me know in the comments. Ukrainian has 7 cases, depending upon what it's in the plural form, and masculine and feminine. It has genders as well, like German. So plural forms are going to be very different depending on what you're talking about. You have to think in terms of the gender and the case that it's in. And it's very simple because the ends of the words are all that's really changing here. Once you know the endings, then Ukrainian's quite easy. And you just have to learn the case system then, and then the plurals will be very basic. In general, the plural form in Ukrainian is made by attaching these 4 vowels. A, I, A, Ya. Now, this is not the only ones by any means, but I'll show you these first. So, student, studente. That's easy. Birds. One bird is ptach. Birds plural, ptachi. See, that's just adding onto an end. But you get words like derevo is a tree, and to make it plural, you detach the O because that's a standard ending, and you put dereva. So there's different endings for certain types of nouns, and you just have to learn those each. But because of the case system, there are so many endings, and I just want to show you these without going too much into depth. You're just going to have to learn them all case by case. And once you know how the endings fit to each other, from my point of view, it does seem like it looks fairly simple, but It's just that there's a lot of them. So Hebrew seems much more difficult than it actually is. It's a Semitic language. Semitic is vastly different from Indo-European or the Indo-European influences which have begun to infiltrate Hungarian. And so the vocabulary of Hebrew is vastly different. Plurals in Hebrew are really easy, thankfully, because it's so different to any language that I've come across. So you have two main categories, feminine and masculine. So girls, banot, and boys, banim. And that ot is the general feminine ending, and the im is the general masculine ending. This does not mean that it's attached to that gender in all cases of different words, but it means that you have two categories that you're working with. And that's really all you need to know in Hebrew. So let's jump into the next language. Netherlands. I find this language, Dutch, very playful, and I mean, from an English perspective, and you're kind of hearing English through another dimensional lens. I really enjoy it. And the plurals, you see how they are very closely related to English in many cases. In English, we say ox and oxen for plural, and the en ending is the main plural ending in Dutch. However, there are a few spelling changes and sound changes related to that, which you need to be aware of, like het dak, the roof, daken, the roofs. And you notice that you don't pronounce the end. So another one, road, weg, becomes wegge. And that's a rule that you can apply across a vast number of nouns. In Dutch, it's the main ending that you'll come across, frankly. But there are some differences of spelling that it affects, because as you just saw, it affects the sound a bit. So, hair, a hair, or hair generally, haar. But if you're saying hairs, hare, that becomes one A. And it becomes drawn out longer. And that goes into other words, other letters, like muur, wall, becomes muren, walls. Words ending in D and B sound like they're ending in T and P. So bed is the word for bed. And if it's plural, bede. You add two D's in there, but that's not every case. You have to know which ones those are, because the word for field is veld. That does sound like it ends in a T, but you don't add two D's when it becomes plural, velde. It does change, but you don't have two D's. Wolf. What do you think the plural of that is? Given that sometimes letters in the middle change. Wolfe. It changes. It changes just like English. I mean, it's probably where it comes from way back in the day. Gans is one of my favorite ones. It becomes ganzen. There's a Z that comes in. It's quite beautiful. And speaking of Dutch, they like the color orange. I'm going to have an orange. We'll be right back. You also get the S ending, like German does in French and English, and some variants in Welsh. And this is mainly attached to unstressed syllables. What do I mean by that? So just wanted to show you what these unstressed syllables are that attach an S to them. So the word for ambition, ambitie. And that apostrophe in there kind of shows you that it's unstressed towards the end. So you add an S to it. but words ending in lmn, attach an s as well. Meisjes, girls. Tafels, tables. I like this ending that it only attaches to certain letters. It gives it a playful sound that I really enjoy about Dutch. Also, nouns ending in the vowels a, o, u take an s. For example, an apostrophe s. For example, photos. There's an apostrophe there. That's not a signifier of ownership like English. It means that it is plural. One that you'll need in the Netherlands, trams, plural. If you know anyone in the Welsh government, let them know I want better transport. You also get a few minor other plural endings in Dutch. So 3 quick others. Leaf is blad. There's that T sound for the D again. But if it's plural, bladeren. You get that era ending, kinderen, children, a lot in Dutch. It's more often than some of the other exception plural endings, like the Latin ones. So aquarium, you don't say aquariums like you do in English, you would say aquaria. There's an A ending, signifying that it comes from Latin, or Greek in some cases. Another one is zeeman. What do you think this is? Sailor, a seaman, but it's not the plural that you would think it is. It's just one of these exceptional ones. Zeelede is the plural. French is consistent in being inconsistent. So you have the letter S, which, like English, conveys plurals in most cases, not always, is silent. And I say rare cases, not too rare, because there are consistent inconsistencies. But the way you identify the plural in French is through the article, siève, le, la, les. And then the S is sounded before vowels, but not always, because the inconsistencies are consistent. And so you identify the plural in French by the words around it mostly. Here I'll show you what I mean with the S and the maison, houses. You don't pronounce the S. You would need les maisons or des maisons to denote that it's plural according to ear. If you're reading it, you can see it, but because orally you wouldn't know, you need to write that really as well. French is unique for this. It's contextual. You determine all by the context around it, rather than the silent S. Lumière, siècle, chanson. It's all silent, so it's context. Un rêve, des rêves. A dream, some dreams. Rabbit, le lapin, le lapin. There's that kind of gliding sound to determine whether it's singular or plural. I like that about French because it's very subtle and nuanced, like the X. You also get the letter X, which is a plural, but not in every case, because the inconsistencies are consistent in French. Le genou. And then you add an X to it, les genoux. You wouldn't know otherwise, because the plurals are completely unmarked apart from the words around them when you're listening. You do get an exception or two in French that you need to be taught. So, an A, an I. But if it's plural, les yeux, the eyes. And they're completely different. And there's not very many, thankfully, so you don't have to worry about it too much. I should note that singular nouns ending in S, X, and Z do not change for a plural form. So you cannot look at a page every time in French. Say, oh, that word ends in S, so it's plural. So for example, noir. That X is neither pronounced nor clear as to whether it's singular or plural. It could be singular or plural. You need context to decide. Cymraeg. As I said toward the beginning of the video, this has more nuance and shades of meaning with plurals than any other language that I have come across, and I'm going to make an entire video just for this because it's a different way of looking at plurals. It conveys different shades of meaning. You can turn things into small things by adding the plural E. When you're learning a language then, no matter what it is, you need to assess one of the first things that you do. How do they form plurals? And what are the exceptions? Hey, let me know in the comments, what do you think was the most difficult language in terms of plurals and why? What do you think was easiest? Would you consider not learning a language because any kind of plurals were intimidating? Or learning a language because you know that, oh, that's out of the way, I don't have to worry about that? And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.